afternoon from the cockpit of the Swamp Duck. It's a glorious day. It's Saturday the 18th of January 2020, and I've come over to the boat today because I want to install a small bilge pump. When the boat is in this marina, it's not too much of a problem to keep popping it over just to check whether things are okay. Occasionally during the winter I've had to pump out some water that is obviously collected in the rear of the boat. It's probably just come through the been blown in through the cockpit. There's nothing seems to be coming up from underneath. It's just rainwater that basically finds its way in and collects at the back of the boat. So periodically I've got the hand pump out and I've pumped the water out. We're only talking of a small amount, probably just a tiny little bit sort of in the bottom of a bucket. But nevertheless, I'd like to install a small automatic bilge pump, because if the boat was elsewhere and it was less convenient to pop backwards and forwards, then I would want to make sure that there's something that's going to clear that bit of rainwater out and keep the boat safe. So I have bought an automatic bilge pump. Now, having done a little bit of research about bilge pumps, they come in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. This is obviously only a small one, and but the one thing about this, it is automatic, whereas some of them are not, and in order to make them automatic you also have to install a little rocker switch, which when I looked at the price of them, they're quite expensive just for the switch. So I paid a little bit more money for this, but it includes the switch inside of it, and obviously it's something less to have to rewire. So the basic wiring, it's 3 wires, and when it's wired up it goes directly to the battery so that it's live for all the time. And it's got 3 wires, as I said. One of them goes directly to the battery, then the other one goes to the switch for the automatic operation, and the other one is for manual operation. The other things that you'll need to install a bilge pump is some pipe work. I've got about 1 metre of this, which is enough because I can direct the water out through the side of the engine compartment. I don't have to drill any holes to the exterior of the boat or anything like that. It can go, the water can be pumped into the engine compartment, and then there's 2 natural soakaways in the engine compartment which will then drain that water into the river or into the canal. So it's pretty straightforward, and then a little jubilee clip on the end of that just to make a nice firm seal to it. So that's that bit. And then the other thing, Phil, my friend Phil, bought me for Christmas. It was on my wish list, and that was a little switch, a Seaflow switch, which I can then connect the bilge pump to, and it's got different settings on it, so you can have it on auto, off altogether, or manual. So my task today is to try and install this, and I'm going to try and film this as I go along so you can see what I have to do, and if you're thinking of installing such a thing, it might be of help to you. Okay, so the first thing to consider is where to site the bilge pump in. In order to do this, I'm going to remove the back step, which is the entrance to this particular boat. And here we've got the petrol tank, and we've got spare petrol containers. So if I just slide this petrol tank out of the way. It's fairly full at the moment, and you can see that down here there is a bit of the boat there where the water seems to collect, just at that back bit. And although I emptied it out a couple of days ago, it has rained quite heavily, and there's already a little pool of water collecting. Not a lot, but if it was left for a few days, it might just build up to activate the bilge pump. So having cleared everything out of the way, you can see the extent of the problem. It's not a great deal of water, but it doesn't want to stay there. So that's where I intend to site the bilge pump. So the way that this bilge pump works is that at the back of it you've got this little compartment here, and what happens is when the water comes in, it pushes this little slider up, which then at the top there will make a contact, and then that will start the pump. And there's the little pump mechanism just there. So it's quite a simple thing, and that's the water outlet. So it basically just pumps the water up there and forces it out there. There's a little motor to keep that rotor going. So it's fairly simple. Let's hope it's effective. So you can see that's where, roughly speaking, the pump is going to be sited, just down here, and that there. I've just got to find a way of keeping that in place. It does come with 3 screws, but it kind of almost suggests that you have to screw it to the bottom, which is not something I want to do. So I will come up with a way of securing that, I think, to the bottom there to keep it in place. And the next thing is a plumbing job, really, that I have to take a pipe, this pipe, which will be attached to that, and it'll go up through here and up through the side of the engine well. So I have to drill quite a hole in the engine compartment in order to accommodate that pipe. So I think that's the job that I'm going to do first, is just to get the plumbing in place. So there we have it. We have the hole with the bilge pump pipe coming through, and that goes into the engine well, which eventually then goes out at 2 holes at the back of the boat, and we'll take that water away. So the other end has now been attached to the bilge pump and kept in place with a Jubilee clip. So that's going to be sited at the stern of the boat, and now it becomes a straightforward wiring job. Okay, so according to the wiring diagram now for the bilge pump, 3 wires. You've got the black goes straight to the battery, and then we've got the brown which goes to the switch, which is part of the automatic switch mechanism, and then after the switch there is a fuse before going straight to the battery. And then there's a red wire which also goes to another pole on the switch, and that's the manual override. So we've got the outlet pipe here coming into the engine well, and then underneath I've sighted the pump, and that's the outlet pipe, and then we've got the 3 wires which have been fed loosely around the back at the moment. So it's a question of putting things back and then sighting the switch and wiring that up, and then wiring the rest of it to the battery. Early on last year, I remember doing a vlog about adding a second battery to the boat and showing the wiring diagram, which was quite simple really. It was just on a scrap of piece of paper, and it just showed the two batteries and not really much else. But as time's gone on, I've obviously added one or two things, and this is the current wiring diagram before I add the bilge pump. You can see I've added one or two things to the boat. I've added a couple of solar panels. There are now 3 batteries on the boat. There are 2 brand new leisure batteries plus a starter battery, and then I've added the 12-volt fridge. There are a couple of sockets, there's an inverter, and also there's the 240-volt circuit with a shoreline. So I'm going to be making it even more complex by adding this bilge pump to it. I'm going to sight the little Seaflow switch here next to the main battery switch, so it keeps all of these in a similar place, and also it's directly in front of the 2 leisure batteries, which I'm going to use to connect the bilge pump. So the first thing I've got to do is to cut out a square, which I've just measured the back of this part here, and it's 55 millimeters by 55, so a square, and I need to cut that out. So I've marked where I want the square to be cut out, so the next little job is to drill a hole in each of the corners, and then I can use my saw to cut that square out. So having drilled the holes, I'm now going to use my pad saw to cut that out. So there we have the switch sighted. So that's where the switch is going to be placed. Now there's a bit of wiring that can be done from this side. If we check the wiring diagram for this, it's this bottom one here, then you'll see that there is a wire which goes from the middle terminal just there to that one just there, and that's this wire that came with the kit, and that's to enable the switch to be put onto a manual rather than just on automatic. So that can go in first of all. Safety element to all of this, before I do anything concerning the next part, which is to fix things to the battery, I've taken out the main battery key here, so the batteries are no longer powering anything. So following the wiring diagram, I now take the positive wire from the bilge pump, and it goes into this terminal here, which is number 8 on the wiring diagram, so that fits in just there. So that's a positive feed. And then the wire for the automatic operation then goes on to number 5, which is this one. So those are the main connections for that. Then the only other thing I have to do is to take a wire from this terminal to a positive terminal on the battery, and then this terminal here goes to a negative terminal on the battery, and then that should work. So I just need to make a couple of wires, one to go to the negative and one to go to the positive, and then that can be fitted in there. Okay, now for safety purposes, before I attach this terminal to the positive on the battery, I'm going to add a fuse. So for anything else, the fuse goes here, and from my vast selection of fuses, I'm going to put in a 15 amp fuse. I have these little fuses all over the boat, just in case there is a power surge. It would damage, so it doesn't damage the equipment. So I have one terminal left, which is this one, so that then connects to a negative on the battery. So I just need to make up a wire from the negative point on the battery to here, and that should complete the circuit. So this is the final bit. This is I put a little collar on this, so this is actually a negative one, our positive. So that goes just there on that terminal there, and that's the wiring of this completed, including a fuse. So that all needs to go back in there, and then that can be attached to the side of the boat there. And then there's just one other thing to do, and that's to connect up the two clips onto the battery, and everything should then be ready to switch back on. It should be connected. Okay, the moment of truth, everything is now connected up. So if I press this one down here, this is for manual operation, and you can hear the pump whirring, and then this switch here puts it all on to automatic, and that's how it wants to stay whilst the boat is in the marina. And that, if anything should happen, that the boat fills with water, then that would hopefully bring the pump into action straight away. So there we have it, the bilge pump is working quite well. It's beginning to lose the light outside, and it's getting quite cold, so there's a warm glow inside the cuddy, so it's time to head inside for another brew. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.